you. And so good morning again. If you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I'm the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living here in Santa Cruz. I do use they, them pronouns. My ancestors come to us truly from all over the world. Those who immigrated to the United States most recently come from Ireland, Scotland, Austria, and Holland. I do have ancestors indigenous to the Americas as well. So this month we've been exploring the idea of divine doubt. And we began this month in this exploration of the idea that doubt is really curiosity, right? That the ability to question, the ability to look at things and ask the deeper questions about them. And we talked about how many of us come to traditions like this or spaces like this because we're probably spiritual seekers, right? Which means that at some point we probably questioned either the spiritual tradition or the spiritual truths that we either did or didn't grow up with, and began to question them, began to seek, began to look, began to find the answers for ourselves rather than what was just prescribed or given. And, for me, that's what led me to Science of Mind. Coming out as queer and young in my life, getting, kicked out of the Baptist church pretty swiftly, sent me on, many years of what I called my years of spiritual tourism, where I went and visited just about every spiritual tradition I could find, and just about every spiritual home I could see. I wanted to know what were the different avenues that people explored to find this thing called God, right? And so that led me to, praying in a mosque in LA on Fridays and going to a Zazen temple on Mondays and sitting in a Baha'i study group on Wednesday evenings for a while and dancing with Hare Krishna for a long, long time. There was a period of time where I almost ran off and just joined the Hare Krishnas, but that was right before I found Science of Mind. And the thing that I found is that every spiritual tradition I went to try out, there was always something that I doubted. There was always something in the teaching, in the tradition, in the community, in the rituals, in the fundamentalist ideas, whatever they might have been. But I found that everywhere I went, there were things that just didn't land, that caused me to keep questioning and keep searching. And it wasn't until I found a Center for Spiritual Living in 2006. This is 20 years I've been in Science of Mind now. It was the first place I ever went where, frankly, the message didn't piss me off. I walked into a church and they were talking about love. They were talking about oneness. They were talking about the power of our thoughts. They were talking about the universal nature of spirit. And all of these things landed in me, and I felt, hey, this feels true to me. This feels right to me. And I was one of those folks who walked in on my first Sunday and sat in the back row, and then my second Sunday I was in the first row. And then it was on from there. The one truth that is fundamental to Science of Mind and this philosophy, which is the thing that resonated with me the most and also the thing I've had to question the most over and over and over again when I confront life reality itself, is this first principle in Science of Mind that says God is all that there is. That says there's only love, there's only oneness, there's only this field of energy, and everything else is either an illusion or a misalignment or a confusion. And in many ways, it's been easy for me to go, yeah, it's all oneness, it's all God, right? The universe is one thing, energy is everything, right? And when we talk about God from this big, big place of God is all there is, we're talking about the God of all creation, but also the God of black holes. The God of love and oneness, but also the God of lions eating gazelles and bacteria taking over bodies. And, that God is this thing that's so big and incomprehensible that it includes everything that we think of as good and or evil, everything that we conceive of as right or wrong, everything that we conceive of as being part of the oneness or not. Guess what? All of that's part of the one thing. That's a very big idea of the universe, of God. And to contemplate that idea can cause us to awaken to the deep interconnection between ourselves and everyone and everything else. Right? To contemplate the idea that God is all there is to say that there is only one of us here in the universe. And that one is participating with itself, exploring itself, getting to know itself, learning about itself through all of the experiences that are happening in all of the universe. Right? So therefore, my experience, your experience, our job is to be the place where the universe is exploring itself. And in that, hopefully, be the place where the universe is falling in love with itself. And so, of course, when we talk about this idea of God as being all that there is, again, a beautiful spiritual thing. We can contemplate it. It can wake us up. It can bring us to love. But it can also perhaps be a source of doubt. It can be a source of deep questioning and perhaps even some deep confusion, because if God is all that there is and it's all just the one thing, then how can all of these horrible things be happening in the world? Right? And I think that we kind of have to separate our concepts, because we have this one concept that says the universe is one thing, and within that one thing is included all things, good or bad, right or wrong, up or down, all of it. But then there's the lived human experience of what's happening in our lives, of what's happening in our nation, of what's happening in our world, the things that cause us deep pain and suffering. And to say that's God too, that might be kind of confusing, right? And so the thing that I've been contemplating this week and in the last couple weeks, and this comes from a question from someone here, about how do we hold the idea of evil in the world when we're supposed to believe that it's all God and it's all one thing, and yet there's so much horror happening in the world. And one of my teachers in school along the way gave us this idea that in the vacuum of the universe, there's no principle, there's no quality, there's no law that brings about cold. There is only motion which brings about heat or the absence of heat. So he was giving us this idea that what if there is only the possibility of the one thing or the absence of the awareness of the one thing? Right? That if God is all there is, then it's like the movement of the universe. Everywhere where there is motion, everywhere where there is activity, everywhere where there's something happening, that energy is being created. But there are places where there's a complete void of the awareness of what's happening. And that's what we call separation, right? Anytime we are in an experience where we feel separate from someone else, we are doing the very opposite of the activity of God, right? The activity of God, the activity of spiritual practice, the activity of being a spiritual being is to continuously look for the places of greater connection, to look for the places where we find the overlap, to look for the places where we feel that deep interconnectedness with each other. And then to remember that in that, there will be places in our lives, and we will see people in the world that might feel or believe or experience themselves as being completely separate from that, right? And it's when we feel separate from life, when we feel separate from love, when we feel separate from each other, that's when harm gets created. That's when pain gets created. That's when suffering gets created, right? And so to just put these ideas into our mind, to start thinking about the world that we're living in, and to look at it through this lens, that everything that is happening is either bringing us closer to love and closer to oneness, or it's pulling us further away from love and further away from that experience of oneness. right? In our classes, one of the classes we're teaching right now, we talked about the idea of heaven and hell not being destinations, but directions of consciousness, directions of attention, right? And so when we place our consciousness and our collective energy and attention towards building a world that works for everyone, towards healing each other, towards healing our trauma, towards falling in love with each other, towards building systems that work to support everyone, we're moving towards the oneness, and we're bringing about more of that good, more of the presence of God. But when we are moving in, when we or individuals in the world move in a direction that think of the self only, so that I can get what I can get at the expense of each other humanity, the world, the planet, other life forms, right? When one feels that they are disconnected from life itself, it's very easy to go about life in a selfish manner that causes you to become more and more separate from life itself. Right? And so when we look at the people who are creating the great harms in the world, who are waging wars, who are oppressing, who are doing the great evils of the world, realize that it comes from a place of being completely separate from the sacred, being completely separate from any knowingness of love, being separate from a greater wholeness. Right? And that in order to heal that seeming sense of separation, our job has to be to look for the oneness, to look for the places where we can just bring a little bit more love or a little bit more light into the darkness of the world. Because if we cultivate that little bit of light, if we cultivate that little bit of love, then we bring it about more. Right? And our job is to carry this little light of truth that each one of us is given, the spark of who we are, and carry it everywhere and shine that light into the world. Because if we allow the darkness to consume us, if we allow the evils of the world to consume our attention, then what happens is that we start to feed it. We start to give our energy to the hate. We start to give our energy to the dis-ease or whatever it is. And the great trick, the great mystery of the universe is to be able to see the things that are wrong, to be able to see the pain and have it open our hearts and not have it shut us down. Jean Houston often talked about how she predicted a number of years ago that the 2020s would begin the most difficult era in human history. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I think it has begun. Right? And she said that everyone ever before now always thinks that their time is the time when transformation is going to happen, or when the end of the world or the beginning of the world or whatever it is. And she said, everyone before us was wrong. It's our time right now. We are living through the moment of great transformation. We are living through a moment of great possibility. And we are living through a moment of great pain and separation. The world is crying out. The soul of humanity is crying out. And that all of the war, all of the separation, all of the fear-mongering, all of the dis-ease, all of the so-called evil of the world, what if it's here to awaken something from within us? What if it's here because we haven't been paying attention to the things that haven't been working? What if the evils that are arising, seem to be waging themselves all over the planet, are here because for so long the collective consciousness of humanity has been perpetuating systems of harm, thinking we're creating good? We have been walking through the world, especially in the West and in America. Many of us have been walking through the world painting this beautiful picture of what's going on, while 99% of what we do every day is creating harm to the planet, to the biosphere, and to people across the world. And it's only when we start to wake up to the pain that is being created, that perhaps it starts to turn something in us where we begin to awaken that compassion. We begin to awaken a deeper sense of purpose. We begin to awaken to this idea that there's something more that we are here to do or to bring about. And what if the conditions of the world that are rising up are here to remind us that the power within us is greater than anything that comes our way? The power within us, the God that we're talking about, the life force, the passion, the creativity that lives in us is greater than anything that comes our way. So if what is coming our way is magnificent horror and war and terrible things that are happening around the world, then let that reflection come back to you and tell you that if you think that the problems of the world are so huge, then remember that the thing that's living within you is bigger than that. And it's calling forth something from within you. And it's to meet the challenge with possibility. It's to meet the issues with creativity, right? It's to find a way to bring about more love and more awareness into the world. The thought that was running through my mind earlier today is that whatever we focus on, we create more of. Right? And so in order to, say, for example, obliterate an evil in the world, the only way to do that by manner of focus is to create a bigger evil. Right? Think about this. To end World War II and all of the suffering of the Holocaust and everything that happened, humanity had to create a greater evil, which was the atomic bomb. And only that greater evil could obliterate the great evil. We had to create something bigger, right? And now that something bigger has the potential to wipe out all of humanity should we push one of those buttons and send this thing going, right? And so if we always get the direction of our focus, if we focus on the evil and we focus on destroying it, we have to create a bigger evil to destroy it. Then how do we destroy that? We have to create something bigger, and we have to keep expanding it. Or we can look at the evils of the world, we can look at the suffering, and then we can find the way that it evokes love from within us. We can find the way that it evokes compassion within us. We can find the way that it evokes creativity within us. And then allow that spark, allow that passion, allow that fury, allow that anger, whatever it is, to be channeled into creating something good, into bringing more love into the world. Right? Darkness cannot put out darkness. Only light can do that. Right? And so if we look to the evils of the world and say we have to destroy these horrible things, or we have to get rid of these terrible people, or we have to stop this bad thing from happening, yes, we do need to shift these things. These things do need to change, but it's not by a matter of meeting it where it's at. Right? If there's all of this pressure pushing against us and we just push against it, all we get is more pressure and more pushing against. And so all of the struggles, the things that come into our lives that feel like pain, that feel like suffering, that feel like dis-ease, that feel like something is wrong, let them be our wake-up call. Let them be our invitation. Right? Centers for Spiritual Living has this great and glorious vision that we call our global vision, and we summarize it by saying we envision a world that works for everyone. That's the dream. The dream is a world that works for everyone, for all of humanity, where the biosphere is thriving, where humanity is part of the interconnected system of all of life. And then we look out in the world and it seems we're going the exact opposite direction, but we have to let it inspire us. We have to let it lift us up. So the invitation here is to let our doubt and curiosity be the engine that keeps us going, to keep questioning every single time something comes our way that brings us pain or suffering or any of that, to find the deepest possible question that remains there and then find how to bring love to the situation. Because if we come from this place of on any level believing that the universe is one thing and that this thing that we call God is all that there is, one love, one energy, one consciousness, one life, then it means indeed, my friends, that there is only one of us here. That I, that you, that we are one. And that also means that when I look out into the world and I see those who are creating harm, I have to remember that in some level I am one with them as well. That I am one with each and every person that is being harmed. Right? That if there's only one of us here, then we have to be able to awaken the love at a higher level. So that when we look out into the war in Gaza, right? I am every child and every family and every person who's been harmed. But that also means that I am every soldier who's shot a gun or dropped a bomb. It also means that I am the bomb itself. That I am the very ground that is being destroyed, but I'm also the seeds of grass underneath the concrete that are rising up. And if we can get to a place of feeling that deep oneness, then everything from suffering to love to ecstasy to joy, all of it is there to help us find those threads of connection. Because if I am one with every victim of war and all the horrors of the world, and I'm also one with those who are creating harm and the perpetrators of evil, then that means that in some way, the work that I do in my heart, the forgiveness work, the compassion work, the healing work, the love that we cultivate, in some way, it is connected and reaching out and healing and bringing us together. I believe that on some level, the pain of the world is waking up our global heart. My deepest prayer is that as I allow the pain and the suffering of the world into my heart, that it wakes me up. And that I choose to live in a different way. That I choose to share my love and bring more love into the world and find ways to bring the art and the love to the healing. And so take a deep breath in and let it go. And do that again. Breathe in and let go. And if it's comfortable, close your eyes and breathe in again. And let go. And let us just breathe together and drop in a little bit deeper. And as we breathe, I invite each one of us into this idea that we are being breathed. That there is one life, one sacred life force that is living and breathing everyone and everything. That as I breathe in and I breathe out, these particles of air are being shared by each one of us in this room. As we breathe, let us remember that these very particles that we breathe are part of this atmosphere that's being breathed by the trees and by the animals and by all of the other people on this planet. One life breathing everyone and everything. Each week we come into this space and we declare that the earth herself is a living, conscious being. And if the earth is a living, breathing being, then everyone and everything who lives upon that body are part of that body. That in fact, all of us are part of the earth life and so are sacred. And so it is from that space that I invite us to breathe a little deeper today and feel those hearts beating, remembering that the one life is beating those hearts. And yes, it is true that the one life is living and breathing through everyone and everything in this world, but it is also true that there are places and that there are people in which that is more awake and consciously present, And there are places and people in this world where that truth is completely absent because of the ignorance of that truth, because of a seeming sense of separation that allows harm, that allows despair, that allows hatred, that allows all of those things, because all of that which we do not want to see in the world is a symptom of our lack of connection to love. That the only way anyone can do harm is to feel the absence of love and act from that place of emptiness. And so I claim, know, and declare in this moment that we are choosing right here and right now to be a place where love is consciously happening. Let each one of our minds and each one of our lives be a purposeful activity of looking for the connections, of looking for the sacred, of looking for the beautiful, of looking for love and joy itself, and then bringing that more and more into the world. So that as we walk through the world and perhaps we see a pair of eyes who are empty or void of that love, that we become the opportunity to pour love in. That as we see all of the harms and the horrors that are happening in the world, that it awakens our greater sense of compassion. That perhaps it almost even rips our hearts open so that there is so much room for love that it expands who we are. And that in the pain we cry out for connection. In the pain we cry out for love. In the pain, we cry out to remember who we are. And so as we breathe together, as we allow these words to move through us, let us remember that our job is to be the love that the world needs. That it is our job to remember those who've been forgotten. That it is our job to bridge the great divide of otherness. It is our job to be the loving balm that soothes all wounds. And let us dream of a day when humanity awakens to this truth, where to the same magnitude that we have created harm in the world, what if we could create an even greater good? An even greater good that allows nothing unlike it to stand. What if everything that comes our way is in our invitation and our opportunity? And the invitation for us here and now is to awaken. Because an awakened mind cannot create harm. An awakened mind will not perpetuate suffering or separation. An awakened mind is here for the healing of all. And so as I claim this truth that there is only one of us here, let that open our hearts to the grief. Let it open our hearts to the forgiveness. And let it open our hearts to the love. That we might be grateful for these precious human lives, for the opportunity that each one of us has to share our gifts and to participate in the greater healing. Because as we participate in the healing, as we bring about love, we heal that separation. We call those in who may have forgotten so that they may remember. Because when we remember, when we truly remember the truth of who we are, love becomes the only choice. And so let us learn to choose love. Let us learn to open up to a love that is greater than we can comprehend. And allow that love to be the activity of our lives. In everything we do, everywhere we go. Let us be the healing that the world needs. And so it is.